Brothers and sisters, so many of us are exhausted. Not because life is too hard, but because we are reacting to everything. Every message, every delay, every word someone says, every unexpected turn, we react. Anger reacts, fear reacts, panic reacts. And before we know it, we've said things we regret, made decisions we didn't think through, and turned small tests into lifelong wounds. Islam never taught us to be people of reaction. Islam taught us to be people of response. There is a difference. Reaction is emotional. Response is conscious. Reaction is rushed. Response is rooted in trust. And the believer is not someone who explodes at every test. The believer is someone who pauses, breathes, and remembers who Allah is. Allah did not tell us that life would be easy. He told us it would be meaningful. And meaning only comes when there are moments where you want to react, but you choose sabr instead. When something goes wrong, the first question we ask is, why me? But a better question is, what is Allah protecting me from that I cannot see? You see, when Allah delays something, we assume it's denial. But very often, delay is mercy. If Allah gave us everything we wanted the moment we wanted it, many of us would destroy ourselves with our own desires. So Allah withholds, Allah redirects, Allah rearranges. And all of that feels uncomfortable until later when you look back and say, now I understand. This world is not running randomly. Your problems are not unplanned. Your tears are not unnoticed. Your dua is not ignored. Allah is Al-Alim. He knows. He knows what broke your heart. He knows what keeps you awake at night. He knows what you didn't say because no one would understand. And He knows exactly how to fix it, even if the fixing doesn't look like what you expected. Sometimes Allah fixes things by removing people. Sometimes He fixes things by closing doors. Sometimes He fixes things by letting something fall apart completely. So you stop holding on to what was harming you. But because we react, we interfere with the process. We panic, we chase, we argue, we force outcomes. We beg people to stay, we explain ourselves to those who already decided not to understand us. And in doing so, we delay the relief Allah was preparing. Sabr is not passive, Sabr is powerful. Sabr is choosing Allah over your ego. Sabr is saying, Ya Allah, I don't understand this right now, but I trust you. And that sentence alone can change everything. Look at the lives of those before us. Relief never came at the moment of panic. It came after patience. Victory never arrived during desperation. It arrived after reliance. Allah does not abandon His servants, but He does teach them. And sometimes the lesson is simple. Stop reacting. Not every comment deserves a reply. Not every insult needs defending. Not every delay needs anxiety. Not every loss needs despair. Silence, when paired with trust in Allah, is not weakness. It is wisdom. There are moments when Allah wants you to step back so He can step in. But if you keep grabbing the steering wheel, you'll never see what He was about to do for you. Tawakkul is not saying, I don't care. Tawakkul is saying, I care. But I trust Allah more than my fear. You make dua and you don't see change. So you think nothing is happening. But dua doesn't always change the situation first. Sometimes it changes you. It strengthens your heart. It steadies your mind. It prepares you for what's coming. And then when the answer arrives, you realize you needed the waiting more than the outcome. Allah fixes things gradually because sudden relief might not hold. Gradual healing teaches gratitude. Gradual solutions build faith. Gradual change roots you deeply in reliance upon Allah, not in outcomes. And let us be honest, some of the things we beg Allah to fix were created by our own reactions. A harsh word, a rushed decision, a moment of uncontrolled anger. Yet even then, Allah is so merciful that He allows repair, He allows return, He allows forgiveness. This is why we never lose hope. Tests are not punishments by default. Sometimes they are redirections. Sometimes Allah is pulling you away from something that would have destroyed your iman. Sometimes He is elevating you quietly while you think you're being delayed. The believer's strength is not loud. It is calm. It is grounded. It is steady. The believer knows that if Allah brought you to it, He will bring you through it. And if Allah removes something from you, it was never meant to stay. Peace does not come when everything is fixed. Peace comes when you trust the one who fixes everything. So the next time life shakes you, pause. The next time you feel like reacting, breathe. The next time things don't make sense, remember, Allah sees the whole picture. You only see a corner. Hand it over to Allah, not halfway, completely, and then watch how He fixes what you could never fix. On your own, in our daily lives, one of the greatest struggles we face is not the problem itself, but how we respond to it. So many wounds are not caused by what happened, but by how we reacted when it happened. A harsh word spoken in anger, a decision made in panic, a relationship damaged because emotions took control. All of these begin with reaction. Islam does not teach us to live like this, constantly pulled by our emotions, constantly responding without thought. It teaches us restraint, awareness, and dignity. When something triggers us, the nafs immediately wants to respond. Anger wants to speak. Fear wants to rush. Pride wants to defend itself. This is where many people lose control, not because they are weak, but because they did not pause. A reaction feels satisfying for a moment, but the regret that follows can last for years. How many people wish they could take back a message they sent while angry, a decision they made while emotional, or words they spoke without thinking? The pain often comes later when the emotion fades, but the consequences remain. Allah created us with emotions, but He also gave us guidance to control them. If reacting was the solution, Allah would not have praised patience. If exploding was strength, Allah would not have loved restraint. The believer is not someone who never feels anger or fear. The believer is someone who knows what to do when those emotions arise. The problem today is that reactions have become normal. Social media encourages instant responses. Society praises those who clap back and stand their ground, even if it destroys hearts and relationships. But Islam calls us to something higher. A reaction often hands control to shaitan. When anger takes over, wisdom disappears. Shaitan thrives in moments of emotional chaos because that is when people forget Allah, forget consequences, and forget their own values. This is why one uncontrolled reaction can undo years of good character. One moment of anger can break trust. One moment of panic can close doors that Allah was opening slowly. When we react immediately, we assume we understand the full picture, but in reality, we rarely do. Allah sees what we cannot see. He knows what is coming next. He knows the hidden benefit in the delay, the unseen protection in the loss, and the mercy behind the discomfort. Reacting prematurely is like tearing open a book before finishing the chapter and assuming you understand the story. The believer learns to wait, not because they are passive, but because they trust that Allah's knowledge is greater than their emotions. Many people say, but if I don't react, I will be taken advantage of. This is a misunderstanding. Islam does not teach silence and oppression, but it teaches wisdom in response. Not every situation requires an immediate emotional answer. Sometimes silence is strength. Sometimes stepping back is protection. Sometimes the calm response confuses the enemy more than the loud reaction ever could. The heart that reacts to everything is a tired heart. It is constantly anxious, constantly defensive, constantly on edge. This is why so many people feel exhausted without doing much. They are emotionally drained from reacting to things that were never meant to carry so much weight. The believer learns to ask, is this worth my peace? And often realizes that it is not. When we train ourselves to pause, to say A'udhu Billah, to remember Allah before responding, something powerful happens. The situation may remain difficult, but the heart becomes stable. And when the heart is stable, clarity returns. That clarity allows us to respond in a way that brings reward, not regret. Stopping reaction is not losing control. It is taking control. It is choosing Allah over impulse, patience over panic, and wisdom over emotion. And when we learn this, we begin to see how many problems were never meant to be fought, only entrusted to Allah. One of the hardest moments in life is when everything feels out of control. When plans fall apart, when doors close without explanation, when the future feels uncertain and the heart becomes heavy. In those moments, the mind begins to race and the soul begins to question. But this is exactly where faith steps in. Not to deny the chaos, but to place it in the hands of the one who controls it. Nothing in this universe is accidental. Not your delays, not your losses, not your sudden changes. Allah is not reacting to your life. He is already ahead of it. Long before you felt confused, Allah already knew the outcome. Long before you felt lost, Allah already mapped the return. When life feels messy, it is not because Allah has lost control. It is because He is doing something you do not yet understand. We often think control looks like comfort. We assume that if Allah is in control, things should feel smooth and predictable. But Allah's control is not meant to make this world perfect. It is meant to prepare us for something greater. Sometimes that preparation requires discomfort. Sometimes it requires loss. Sometimes it requires what? Elking through uncertainty so that reliance on Allah becomes real, not just theoretical. When chaos enters our lives, our first instinct is to fix everything ourselves. We start forcing outcomes, chasing explanations, demanding clarity. But control was never ours to begin with. Allah reminds us again and again that He manages every affair. Hearts change by His permission. Doors open by His command. Relief comes only when He allows it. And the sooner the believer accepts this, the lighter the heart becomes. Trusting Allah's control does not mean you stop making effort. It means you stop believing that effort alone guarantees results. You tie your camel, but you trust Allah for the destination. You do your best, but you surrender the outcome. This balance is what gives the believer stability when everything else feels unstable. There are moments when Allah allows things to break down so we stop relying on what was never solid. A plan that collapses, a relationship that ends, a path that suddenly closes. At the time it feels like failure, but later with clarity you realize it was protection. Allah removed something not because He wanted to hurt you, but because He wanted to save you from a future you could not see. The believer understands that Allah's wisdom is not always visible immediately. Sometimes you only recognize it years later, when you look back and see how one painful event redirected your entire life, how one unanswered dua prevented a greater loss, how one delay saved your iman. Allah does not explain Himself to us, but He asks us to trust Him, and that trust itself is an act of worship. When the heart truly accepts that Allah is in control, panic begins to fade. The storm may still rage, but the soul finds an anchor. You stop asking, what if everything goes wrong? And start believing, even if things go wrong, Allah will carry me through. This mindset transforms fear into faith and anxiety into acceptance. Many people think faith means having all the answers. In reality, faith means being comfortable not having them. It means knowing that Allah sees what you cannot, hears what you whisper, and understands what you struggle to express. It means believing that nothing is wasted in Allah's plan. Not your tears, not your patience, not your pain. When you remind yourself that Allah is in control, even when life feels chaotic, something inside you settles. You realize you are not alone in the storm, you are being guided through it. And when the storm passes, you will see that Allah was never absent. He was arranging everything with mercy, precision, and perfect wisdom. In a world that celebrates noise, speed, and instant response, silence and patience are often misunderstood. People assume that if you do not speak immediately, you are weak, and if you do not react, you have lost. But in Islam, silence is not emptiness, and patience is not defeat. Silence can be worship, and patience can be power. These are not passive states, they are conscious choices made for the sake of Allah. There are moments when the tongue can destroy more than any weapon. A single sentence spoken in anger can shatter trust, break families, and leave wounds that never fully heal. This is why Islam places such weight on controlling the tongue. Silence in moments of anger is not fear, it is wisdom. It is choosing Allah's pleasure over the satisfaction of releasing emotion. And every time a believer holds back for Allah, that restraint is recorded as reward. Patience is often imagined as waiting without doing anything. But true patience is active. It is the ability to remain grounded while the heart is hurting, to continue obeying Allah while the situation feels unfair, and to hold on to good character when it would be easier to let go. This kind of patience does not go unnoticed. Allah sees the struggle inside the chest, the words swallowed, the tears hidden from others. And Allah loves those moments more than we realize. Silence becomes worship when it is chosen for the sake of Allah, when you remain quiet to avoid harming someone, when you refuse to respond to provocation because you know Allah is watching, when you walk away from an argument not because you lost, but because your iman matters more than your ego. In these moments, the heart rises even as the tongue rests. The problem is that we often feel pressured to explain ourselves, to defend our intentions, to correct every misunderstanding. But not every explanation brings clarity, and not every defense brings peace. Sometimes silence protects your dignity more than words ever could. Allah knows your intentions even when people misunderstand you. And if Allah knows, that is enough. Patience also teaches us emotional discipline. It trains the soul to slow down, to reflect before acting, to remember consequences beyond the moment. A patient heart does not deny pain, it manages it with faith. It accepts that some answers will come later and some justice will be given by Allah, not people. This acceptance does not weaken the believer, it strengthens them from the inside. There are times when Allah delays relief, not because He is distant, but because He is nurturing your patience. Just like muscles grow through resistance, faith grows through restraint. If every hardship disappeared instantly, patience would never develop. And without patience, the heart becomes fragile, easily shaken by the smallest test. Silence and patience also create space for clarity. When emotions settle, wisdom emerges. Many conflicts escalate not because the issue is serious, but because emotions were allowed to speak first. A pause can change the entire direction of a situation. A calm response can soften a hard heart. A patient stance can turn hostility into respect. Choosing silence and patience does not mean you accept injustice or suppress truth. Islam teaches balance, but it also teaches timing. There is a time to speak and a time to remain quiet. There is a time to act and a time to wait. Wisdom lies in knowing the difference, and that wisdom is a gift from Allah. Every moment of patience, every silence held for Allah, every emotion controlled for His sake is an act of worship. It may not look dramatic and it may go unnoticed by people, but it is heavy in the sight of Allah. And in a world obsessed with reaction, the believer who chooses patience stands quietly strong, trusting that Allah sees, Allah knows, and Allah will reward in ways far greater than words. There comes a point in life when holding on begins to hurt more than letting go. Yet for many of us, stepping back feels terrifying. We are afraid that if we loosen our grip, everything will collapse. But faith teaches us something deeply comforting. When you step back with trust, Allah steps in with care far greater than anything you could manage on your own. We often confuse control with responsibility. We think that if we stop pushing, chasing, explaining, and fixing, we are failing. In reality, some things in life were never meant to be carried by human hands. Hearts are not controlled by us. Outcomes are not guaranteed by effort alone. And the believer learns, sometimes through exhaustion, that forcing situations only creates more pain. When Allah wants to fix something, He sometimes asks you to release it first. Release the need to be understood by everyone. Release the need to control how things unfold. Release the belief that your worth is tied to a specific outcome. This release is not giving up. It is handing over. And there is a profound difference between the two. So many people delay Allah's help because they keep interfering, they keep reopening wounds Allah is trying to heal, they keep knocking on doors Allah has already closed, they keep chasing people Allah is slowly removing, and all the while Allah is waiting for the servant to trust Him enough to step back and say, Ya Allah, I leave this to you. When you step back, clarity begins to form. You start seeing patterns you missed while you were emotionally involved. You realize why certain things never worked despite your effort. You notice how Allah was protecting you from outcomes you once begged for. Distance, when paired with trust, reveals wisdom. Allah does not need your anxiety to solve your problems. He does not need your panic to bring relief. He does not need your constant worrying to change what is written. What He asks for is reliance. A heart that trusts, even when it does not understand. A soul that believes even when it feels uncertain. There is a beautiful peace that comes when you finally stop fighting the process. When you stop begging for control and start asking for guidance. When you stop obsessing over outcomes and focus on obedience. In that space, Allah's plan begins to unfold naturally. Doors open without force. Answers arrive without desperation. Relief comes in ways you never anticipated. Sometimes Allah steps in by changing the situation. Sometimes He steps in by changing you. He strengthens your patience, deepens your faith, and softens your heart. And then you realize that the struggle was not meant to destroy you. It was meant to realign you. Letting Allah take over does not mean you stop making effort. It means you stop carrying the burden alone. You do what is within your capacity, and you leave what is beyond you to the one who controls all affairs. This balance frees the heart from constant tension and fills it with quiet confidence. Many people only discover Allah's intervention after they step back, after they stop reacting, after they stop forcing answers. That is when solutions appear, often effortlessly. That is when Allah shows how He was arranging matters all along, even while you thought nothing was happening. When you trust Allah enough to step back, you witness something powerful. You see how little control you actually needed. You see how Allah's plan is far more precise than your fears. And you realize that sometimes the greatest act of faith is not action, it is surrender. One of the greatest lessons a believer can learn is that Allah fixes things in His own time, not necessarily when we demand it. We live in an age of immediacy. We want answers instantly, relief quickly, and solutions to come on our schedule. But Allah's timing is perfect, and often the way He fixes matters is far wiser than we could ever imagine. Understanding this requires patience, trust, and a heart that can wait without losing hope. Many people make the mistake of expecting instant results because they assume that dua or effort should bring immediate change. When it doesn't, they despair, lose faith, or even give up entirely. But the truth is, Allah is always working behind the scenes. Even when we cannot see it, even when it feels like nothing is changing, Allah is arranging outcomes, shaping hearts, and preparing circumstances in ways we cannot comprehend. The problem is not that Allah is slow. The problem is that our perspective is limited. Sometimes the delay is necessary because Allah is preparing you. He is molding your character, strengthening your patience, and teaching you lessons that only time can bring. When a situation drags on, it is often not a punishment, it is a form of guidance. What we see as a delay may actually be a shield from harm, a redirection toward better, or a test to deepen our faith. The believer learns to trust that the process itself is part of the blessing. Relief often comes in stages. Allah may fix part of a problem first and then complete the rest later. This gradual unfolding teaches gratitude, humility, and perseverance. If everything were resolved at once, we might not appreciate it, and our hearts would not grow through the experience. The beauty of Allah's timing is that it aligns with our growth, not just our comfort. Every delay has wisdom, and every test has purpose, even if it is hidden from our eyes. Many people struggle because they want to see the results before they continue trusting Allah. But this is not how faith works. Faith is believing in what is unseen, trusting in what is promised, and holding on to hope even when the evidence seems absent. Our prayers, our patience, and our efforts are never wasted. Allah is collecting all of it, shaping outcomes and preparing openings that we cannot yet perceive. What feels like waiting is actually part of His plan to bring something far greater than we could have arranged ourselves. It is also important to understand that Allah's fixes are not always in the form we expect. Sometimes He changes circumstances. Sometimes He changes people. Sometimes He changes your own heart. The outcome may not match our original request, but it is always better than what we could have imagined. Many of us have asked for something that seemed perfect in our eyes, only to realize later that Allah gave something far better. His wisdom surpasses our desires, and His mercy surpasses our understanding. A heart that trusts Allah's timing is a heart at peace. It does not panic when answers are delayed. It does not despair when situations seem hopeless. It does not force outcomes or take matters into its own hands recklessly. Instead, it keeps striving, keeps praying, and keeps believing, knowing that Allah is the best of planners. The believer learns to step back emotionally, to remain patient, and to watch quietly as Allah orchestrates what is meant to be. Ultimately, understanding that Allah fixes things gradually teaches reliance, humility, and contentment. T reminds us that our role is to do our part sincerely, to pray without ceasing, to remain patient, and to trust that Allah's timing is flawless. Relief, solutions, and blessings will come at the perfect moment. And when they do, the believer will recognize the mercy, wisdom, and power of Allah in ways that bring gratitude, peace, and increased faith. Waiting is not in vain. It is the pathway through which Allah's perfect plan is revealed. Life is full of tests, and one of the greatest misunderstandings among people is to see trials as punishments rather than guidance. When difficulties arrive, many hearts immediately assume that they have done something wrong or that Allah is upset with them. While sin can bring consequences, not every challenge is a reflection of our mistakes. Often, trials are gentle or sometimes firm reminders from Allah to redirect us, to guide us to better paths, and to elevate us spiritually, emotionally, and morally. Tests come in different forms. Sometimes it is loss, a job, a relationship, or an opportunity. Sometimes it is hardship, illness, financial difficulty, or social struggle. Sometimes it is confusion, loneliness, or emotional pain that no one can see. In all these moments, the believer is invited to pause and reflect, what is Allah trying to teach me here? What lesson is hidden behind this challenge? Trials are not meant to break us, they are meant to reshape us, to strengthen our iman, and to build resilience that cannot be achieved without difficulty. The purpose of tests is not always immediately clear. Life is like a journey through a dense forest. From within the trees, the path seems confusing, tangled, and even dangerous. While from above, one sees the pattern clearly. Allah sees the journey from above, and His wisdom is infinite. What feels painful, unfair, or overwhelming may actually be a form of protection. Allah may be closing one door to prevent a greater harm, opening another path to bring long-term benefit, or redirecting you away from something that would have damaged your faith or heart. It is essential to understand that trials are also a tool for purification. Hardships cleanse the heart from attachment to the worldly and remind us of our dependence on Allah. When everything is easy, we are tempted to forget Him, to rely solely on our own strength, or to take blessings for granted. But when life becomes difficult, the heart turns to its true source of support. This is the mercy hidden in tests. They guide us back to Allah when we might have wandered, teaching reliance and humility. Patience in trials is deeply rewarded. A heart that perseveres without losing faith is beloved to Allah. Every hardship faced with sincerity, every moment of restraint, every prayer offered despite despair is recorded. Trials are opportunities, not setbacks. They are moments in which the believer can grow spiritually, strengthen character, and earn immense reward, sometimes far beyond what worldly success could provide. It is also important to recognize that Allah's wisdom in testing us is beyond our understanding. Humans tend to judge situations only by what they see, but Allah considers the past, the present, and the future simultaneously. What we perceive as suffering may actually be a step toward immense relief, a shield from harm, or a means to greater blessings. Many stories of the prophets and righteous people remind us that what begins as hardship often ends in triumph when surrendered to Allah's guidance. Trials also develop empathy and compassion. Experiencing hardship personally allows a believer to support others with understanding and sincerity. Through tests, hearts are softened, arrogance is reduced, and patience becomes a habit that benefits not only the individual, but the entire community. Life's challenges are not meaningless. They are shaping forces, molding the believer into someone who can endure, teach, and inspire. Ultimately, understanding trials as guidance changes the way we live. Instead of despairing at difficulties, the believer reflects, prays, and seeks Allah's wisdom. Instead of reacting in anger or frustration, they respond with patience and hope. Every test becomes an opportunity to grow closer to Allah, to increase reliance on Him, and to witness His mercy in ways that are unseen to the human eye. Trials are not punishments. They are gentle and sometimes firm reminders that Allah is present, that He is guiding, and that everything happening in life, no matter how hard, has purpose and wisdom behind it. One of the most beautiful truths in Islam is that dua, sincere supplication to Allah, is never wasted, even when we cannot see immediate results. So often, people pray for relief, guidance, or change, and when the answer does not arrive as expected, their hearts grow heavy, their faith wavers, and they question whether Allah has heard them. But the reality is that dua is a powerful act that works in ways far beyond our limited perception. Even when we do not see visible results, change is occurring, sometimes in ways that we cannot yet understand. Dua is a conversation between the servant and Allah, and every word spoken with sincerity reaches the divine presence. When a person calls upon Allah, even quietly in the heart, it is recorded and valued. Allah's knowledge encompasses all things, the seen and the unseen, and He understands precisely what is needed at the right time. Sometimes the delay in response is not denial, but a sign that something greater is being prepared, something that will bring benefit far beyond what we originally requested. It's important to understand that the answer to dua does not always come in the form we imagine. Sometimes Allah changes circumstances. Sometimes He changes people. And often He changes the heart of the one praying. A person may pray for relief from hardship, and while the situation remains difficult, Allah strengthens patience, softens the heart, and instills resilience that cannot be gained otherwise. The inner transformation that comes through waiting on Allah's response is itself a profound blessing. Many of us become anxious because we want immediate confirmation that our dua has been accepted, yet Allah works silently and gradually. What we see is only a fraction of the greater plan. Just as a seed takes time to grow before it blooms, dua often sets into motion changes that require time and nurturing before they bear fruit. During this period, we are being prepared, our character is being refined, our reliance on Allah is deepened, and our understanding of true blessing is expanded. A key part of making dua effective is consistency. The believer does not make one hurried supplication in desperation and then give up when the response seems delayed. True dua is persistent, humble, and patient. It is made with the understanding that Allah's timing is perfect and that He knows what is best, even if our hearts cannot yet see it. The act of returning repeatedly to Allah in prayer, despite difficulty or delay, strengthens faith and reinforces the connection between the servant and the Creator. Another profound aspect of dua is that it teaches surrender. In asking Allah for help, we acknowledge our own limitations and express dependence on Him. This surrender brings peace to the heart because it shifts the burden from our shoulders to Allah's care. Even if the situation remains unchanged for a time, the believer experiences comfort and reassurance, knowing that nothing escapes Allah's attention and nothing occurs outside His will. Dua also opens doors that human effort alone cannot reach. Many times solutions arrive unexpectedly, people change, opportunities appear, and blessings manifest, all through means we cannot predict. These changes are often linked to the continuous dua that the believer has made, unseen by the eyes of others, but powerful in the sight of Allah. The key is patience and trust, knowing that Allah hears every plea and responds in the manner that is best. Ultimately, the beauty of dua lies in the unseen. Its impact is not measured solely by immediate results, but by the transformation it brings within the heart, the protection it provides, and the preparation it offers for what is to come. A believer learns to continue praying, to continue hoping, and to continue trusting, understanding that even when the answer is delayed, Allah is at work, shaping the future in ways that only He knows. Dua is never ignored, never wasted, and never meaningless. It is a bridge to Allah's mercy, a source of strength, and a reminder that the unseen is always greater than what the eyes perceive. True peace in life is not found in the absence of problems, but in the presence of trust in Allah. So often people chase comfort, success, or control, thinking that these external things will bring tranquility. Yet the believer learns a deeper truth. Peace comes when we surrender the outcomes to Allah, when we stop reacting impulsively, and when we rely fully on His wisdom and mercy. It is not about ignoring challenges or pretending hardships do not exist. It is about anchoring the heart in reliance upon the One who is Al-Khaliq, Al-Rahim, and Al-Hakim. Many of us spend years reacting to situations with anxiety, anger, or frustration, believing that our constant effort to control everything will protect us. But in reality, reacting in haste often magnifies problems. It clouds judgment, strains relationships, and burdens the heart. True peace, however, comes when we pause, step back, and place our trust in Allah's hands. When we stop forcing outcomes and allow Him to guide the course of events, we free ourselves from the heavy weight of unnecessary worry. Trusting Allah does not mean inaction. It means doing what is within our power while leaving the rest to Him. We tie our camel, but we trust Allah for the journey. We plan, work hard, and make decisions, but we release attachment to results that are ultimately beyond our control. This balance is what leads to serenity. A heart that knows it has done its part and then entrusts the outcome to Allah is a heart that is calm, centered, and confident even amid uncertainty. Peace also comes from realizing that Allah's knowledge surpasses ours. We often fear what we do not see, worry about what we cannot predict, and despair over what seems beyond repair. But Allah sees the full picture. He knows the hidden benefits in every trial, the protection in every delay, and the mercy in every difficulty. A heart that trusts this knowledge does not panic over the temporary darkness because it understands that light is already being arranged even if it is not yet visible. When a believer relies on Allah, emotional reactions begin to soften. Anger diminishes, anxiety loses its grip, and the restlessness of the heart gradually settles. This does not happen overnight. It is cultivated through remembrance of Allah, through reflection on His promises, and through patience in the face of hardship. The more a person practices reliance, the more naturally the heart turns to Allah, rather than reacting to every challenge or disappointment. One of the greatest gifts of trust is the ability to see trials as temporary and purposeful. Life will inevitably bring difficulties, setbacks, and pain, but the believer understands that these are not final. They are lessons, redirections, or opportunities for growth. By letting go of the need to control every outcome and by trusting Allah, the heart experiences relief even before solutions appear. This is the essence of inner peace, stability that does not depend on circumstances, but on the certainty of Allah's mercy and wisdom. Peace also manifests in how we interact with others. A person who trusts Allah is less likely to be reactive in relationships, less likely to harbor resentment, and more able to forgive. When we understand that Allah is in control, we stop carrying the burden of enforcing justice ourselves or manipulating outcomes to suit our desires. This brings harmony, not only to our hearts, but to our homes, workplaces, and communities. Ultimately, reliance on Allah transforms the way we live. We stop reacting to every twist and turn of life, and instead we observe, act wisely, and trust. We cultivate patience, gratitude, and calmness. We recognize that peace is not the absence of difficulty, but the presence of trust. And when the heart surrenders fully to Allah, it discovers a tranquility that the world cannot take away. A deep, enduring serenity that anchors the soul no matter what storms may come. In the journey of life, we often forget that our control is limited, but Allah's control is absolute. We rush, we panic, we react, and in doing so, we burden our hearts unnecessarily. Yet Islam teaches us a profound and comforting truth. When we stop reacting and place our trust in Allah, He steps in to fix what we cannot. Life's trials are not punishments, but guidance. Delays are not denials, but mercy, and challenges are not the end, but opportunities for growth. Patience, silence, and reliance are not signs of weakness. They are expressions of deep faith. Every hardship, every unanswered dua, and every moment of uncertainty is part of Allah's perfect plan. He is working behind the scenes, shaping outcomes, softening hearts, and preparing blessings in ways we cannot perceive. When we surrender with sincerity, Allah transforms what seemed broken into something beneficial, what seemed delayed into timely relief, and what seemed painful into a source of strength and wisdom. True peace is found not in controlling every situation, but in trusting the one who controls all things. When we stop reacting impulsively, stop chasing outcomes, and stop forcing our own solutions, we create space for Allah's intervention. Relief comes gradually, guidance comes silently, and mercy arrives at the perfect time. So let us take a step back from the chaos of reaction and place our hearts in the hands of Allah. Let us embrace patience, make dua with sincerity, and trust that every difficulty, delay, and test carries purpose. When we do this, we will witness the beauty of divine wisdom, the power of steadfast faith, and the comfort of a heart that knows Allah fixes everything, often in ways far greater than we could imagine. Ultimately, life becomes lighter, hearts become calmer, and faith grows stronger when we stop reacting and allow Allah to handle what only He can. Trust Him, rely on Him, and watch how He transforms every challenge into a blessing.